Good morning. I'm John Pedersen.
I'm Sarah Miller.
This is the episode number zero point 0.5 of WiscNet Community Conversations, the show. It's Wednesday, July 15th. We're trying this out. We're seeing how it goes, kicking the tires on all of this thing. Sarah, tell us what this WiscNet Community Conversations show is about.
Yeah, happy to. So WisNet Community Conversations, the show, is a bi-weekly online conversation connecting people and strategies between interesting members of the WisNet community. Right now, we can't get out to visit you where you're at, so we invite you to come talk to us and the rest of the membership. And today, our very first inaugural guest ever, Felicia Barrios, our member fulfillment specialist here at WisNet. Felicia, can you tell us a little bit about what you do? I love putting you on the spot with this question.
This question I have, thanks, Sarah. I'm happy to be here. I've had this question many times, and I'm always full of a slight amount of panic every time it comes my way, but I'll do my best.
It's almost as easy
The
as what is WiscNet and what do you
yeah,
do? What do you
I
do?
know. These are questions that keep me up at night. Um, no, but so I work for WiscNet, obviously, and basically I'm here to help connect people and strategies, for lack of a better short phrase. I'm the first line of defense. I work with my colleague Camelia, and we help connect people to all of the WiscNet services that we offer, basically.
Excellent. What is
Awesome.
your Tell us a little bit about your history here with WiscNet, though, too, because that's
Darn,
fun.
I was
How do you wiggle through all of
I
this?
was trying to avoid going into the historical part. No,
Uh,
I started. Okay, well, here is the story. I started at WiscNet as the business office manager, and then worked my way up the ladder to the technical side. I took a pretty deep interest in trying to figure out how the internet works and how the schools get it, and the libraries and the municipalities and all of that. So I joined the technical team about a year and a half into my time at WiscNet, and did that for a few years. And then WiscNet 2.0 happened, and we
then
went
a
through a bit of a
pandemic broke out,
restructuring.
but
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. There was at least a year between those two things, but yeah, and now I'm doing a lot more, I guess, people facing stuff.
exactly. So a little bit of technical background,
Yeah.
a couple years of WisCNet background. How many years?
Right now, I'm
three,
at
four, five,
5
five.
actually.
Ooh, 5 years.
I know.
Wow.
I'm like 5.5 actually, and I'll be 6 in January, so that's getting close.
That's
Yeah,
amazing. I didn't know that.
I know, it's been a while.
flies when you're having fun. Got a
Yeah.
couple questions for you. We'll play
Or
around. Just
panic attacks. It
panic
also
attacks.
applies when
Yeah,
you're having panic attacks.
yeah.
Sometimes those are the same thing to me. Okay,
We
go on.
we'll do a whole show about growing up at WiscNet someday.
Oh boy.
Oh,
Oh,
yikes.
a couple questions for you just kind of play with this. I hate starting this whole thing off with COVID and pandemic talk, but we just got to get it out right there. We started at WisNet here working from home back on March 16th, and basically since then, 80% of the staff have been working from home. Probably 20%, which is WisNet staff-wise, about 5 people have been kind of holed up at the office here to do various things. I know you've had a little bit of experience with both of them, Felicia.
Hmm.
Same with me. And Sarah's been in her house for the whole time. Tell us what's the best and the worst of your working experience through this whole whatever it is last 17 weeks or so.
I've been thinking about this in general, and I think it comes and goes in waves. My either my desire to work from home or to work at the office, and I I have just come to accept that as my new normal. And since WiscNet has been flexible about allowing us to go either way, I've been super grateful for that, because sometimes I'm really into, because my role requires that I work with so many different, or all of the departments at WiscNet, and really talking to people constantly. It's nice to be able to go in and like bounce ideas off of, Dave or Kika, or my colleagues. But one of the most difficult things, I think, is keeping track of our communication uh, about various topics. I mean, which has always been kind of an interesting thing to navigate.
It's hard in
But
normal times.
yeah, and so it has become a whole new ball game. But I mean, one of the nice things is just to be able to have WiscNet so flexible and to go with the flow on whatever I happen to be feeling, within reason. So that's been really nice.
What's the worst?
I think it's how much isolation I feel probably, um, because I recently moved into my own place by myself. So now I'm working alone
Nice,
and
nice
living
move.
alone and doing doing everything alone, which is great for a lot of reasons, but it does get a little too quiet and I get annoyed with my roommate sometimes. So
How about you, Sarah? Best and
The
worst.
the best and the worst. The best is, even though I really relished my commute because it gave me that nice boundary between work and home. My commute is about 25-30 minutes one way, and it was like, and that's like literally the only time I get alone. So I used to like it, but not having to commute literally gives me a whole hour. Like magically appeared. Like now I have 25 hours in the day, so that's been really nice. That seems like a little thing, but it's a big thing. It also means I can sleep just a little bit longer, so I'm actually getting more sleep, which is miraculous because I haven't slept in like 6 years now. Um, the worst has by far been trying to manage like working full time and parenting. My kids did go back to daycare recently, but for a really really long time it was just like all day every day, and like WisNet plus a 6-year old plus a 3-year-old is way more challenging than it looks, which isn't really WisNet. I mean, it's like any parent right now who's doing this is, especially mothers, is hanging on by a thread. So it's like I love that WisNet has been so understanding and flexible, and that like the world is changing. I think that's really important. I don't think we're ever going to go back in a lot of ways, but I would be lying completely if I pretended like it's been puppy dogs and rainbows over here. Because no. What about
Indeed.
you, John?
Me, boy. Yeah, I started out with doing the working from home thing, and you think you know it, and you read all of the good stuff about what to do and what not to do, and stuff like that. And then it's like 10 weeks later, and you're just melted down in the corner. Um, it was really difficult for me to work from home. You do some of it, um, but it just felt like walking through mud and quicksand the whole time. I came back into the office probably about 3 weeks ago, um, and I have the benefit of kind of holding up in a little corner here, and with only three, four, five people in this office, um, I'll go most of the day without seeing people. I might see one or two of my other colleagues there, but we're spaced out. It's kind of nice to be back in the office because I get to do those routines like a commute, like have some structure, like you know have some nice lighting and all of that other stuff. Versus I had a good setup at home, but it was just like ugh, ugh. So feels better to be working back from here. I still have some reservations on it. I mean, we're someday we'll look back on this and go, either, oh, it got really a lot better, or, oh, it got really dark. But we're sitting here in the middle of the summer right now. Dane County, where we live, um, is a very active hotspot. Um, and so they've just tightened down a little bit more at this point, and we'll see how she goes. But it'll be an interesting thing going into next school year, with what do we do with our children. I've got one that's going into 10th grade and one that is going into her freshman year of college at UW Madison. And so trying to figure out what that looks like, and will she live in a dorm and all of that other stuff, or whatever. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next month, or 3 or 6,
Or 12?
or 12, or 12. We just don't know. We just don't know. So, yeah, it involves changing up the way we work. WisNet is, since I've been here, I think forever actually. Um, been very on the end of meeting face to face, whatever that takes. It takes travel and stuff like that. We've dabbled in some online stuff, but we really prefer to get face to face with people, get informal, gather people together to talk with each other. And now we're kind of stuck with this for a while. And so test it out and see how she works. Question for both of you too. I'll start again with Felicia. Would you rather be going through this as a 6-year-old, a 16-year-old, or a 60-year-old?
Oh, well, I think originally I was going to go with as a 6-year-old. And I think I'll roll with that for now just because my godson is 5 and he's having a grand old time right now because he gets to just hang out. It's like summer vacation all year long. And he was just starting to go to school in 4K anyway. So that was, just go to school for half a day and then you're good. But I think that I don't know, that seems like a cop out answer, but I think it would be really cool to just be doing it as a 6-year-old and just be able to run around for the most part in, your own backyard and spend more time with people who have the flexibility to also spend time with you and all that jazz. So
Indeed.
I'd go that route probably, and then maybe by the time I would be 60, I would maybe be over this.
How about you, Sarah?
I'm gonna roll with 6 too. I have really relished getting older. Like it just gets better every year. I was not expecting that. My 30s have been amazing. Way
It's
better
good
than
to
my
good to
20s.
know.
I
Good
know.
to know.
I know this is not the first time I told you that, but I'm not quite ready to be 60 yet. So, like, I'm not gonna choose 60. You literally could not pay me any amount of money to go back to being 16. So, I'm gonna pick 6 because by default it's the last choice. But I also think, having a 6-year-old, much along the lines of what Felicia just said, like there's still, I think one of the only insulations for this is childhood, and that's not to suggest that like kids don't know what's going on, because they do. Like they're really smart and they're affected by it as well. But I have not seen the same sort of crushing stress happening to my kids or the other kids that I know that's happening to like pretty much every adult in my life. So I think, insofar as it crosses a 6-year-old's mind, like maybe once a day, maybe. I just think like right now is a pretty good time to be a kid. I mean, my 6-year-old is like, that's fine. I'm good. We can just stay here forever. Just stay
Yep.
here in this house together forever. And I'm like, okay.
Ah!
Bedtime is only 6.5 hours away. I love you.
Sometimes. Oh boy, similar question.
Mm.
The same thing. You think this is? We've talked about this a little bit. Even Sarah and I've talked about it a lot. I've even talked a little bit with Felicia about it. You think it's easier or harder on introverts or extroverts, or what based on what you are? Because I can speak for Sarah and I as just being extreme introverts, and Felicia is kind of over that on the other side during the normal time. But what has your experience been dealing with that in this whole situation?
Yeah, so I think I'm becoming more confident in the fact that I'm an ambivert.
There you
And I
go.
don't know if that's happening with age or if I'm just getting more in tune with my inner self or what. But I'm going to make the argument that this is harder for the extroverts because there are times lately where I'm just craving that social interaction. Like all of last summer, I was doing a lot of like rec sports stuff. I was going out, I was getting to know people, we were playing sports, we were, having a good time. And this summer, it's just like, oh, okay, let me go for my sixth walk of the day. Um, and say hi to people like across the street, and we get really excited for those simple things. But I've done stuff like join more online communities just so I can talk to people a little bit more when I'm feeling like, like I want that human interaction. And I do call members and talk to them on the phone, and that gives me energy. And so that's how I know I do still have that extrovert side. But in times of high stress, I think my introvert side comes out a little bit more, and I just want to kind of, you know, take a lot of time to recharge after my third Zoom meeting of the day, and all of that. So I would make the argument that it's a little bit harder for extroverts right now, just because we should not be going out and talking to people, you know,
Yeah.
without social distancing and all of
I'm
that.
also
What kind of
wondering too if
oh,
it's
go
like
ahead.
less an introvert extrovert thing and more like an aloneness thing. Because I've seen like greater like I'm definitely an introvert, but I'm not getting more time alone. Like, oh my God, I'm going completely insane with people being around me all day, and touching me. Like, I'm just stop touching me. But I have seen the biggest struggle from people who are living alone, or
Oh,
like I'm worrying much more about like my dad who's by himself or whatever, because I think regardless of extroversion or introversion, right now what's really important is how much are you seeing people, and if the answer is none, zero, not at all,
Mhm.
I think that has a really big impact. I mean, introverts need people too, even if it exhausts them. And it's totally different to be an introvert and not see somebody for 3 months, or not hug another person for 3 months. I mean, that stuff matters regardless of where you draw your energy.
That's a good point.
what kind of things are you doing to distract yourself during this time?
I was
I
gonna
I just
make a joke that my drinking alone has been an all-time high, but that's not true. I have taken up woodworking, actually,
fun.
as funny as that is. When I moved into this, it's like an attic flat in an old house downtown, and it didn't have a whole lot of like shelving, and the walls are slanted. You can kind of see. So I had to get creative. You can see my creations a little bit behind me on the
Yeah.
shelving that I had to kind of put on the walls. So I spent a
Nice.
lot of time just being anxious and putting all of my energy into making sure that these shelves are good, finding another human to come help me put them on the wall in a leveled manner. Like you can do that probably on your own, but it's probably going to sit like this, at least in my case, because I'm new to this kind of thing. And plus, these walls, let me go on a little tangent, are so old. So you have to put like drywall anchors and all these things that I had to like learn and figure out and kind of do a lot of research apparently before you just jump into things like this.
Yeah,
But
right.
yeah, I know. And so I got into like using tools and stuff, and I had been kind of into that a little bit, but like my mom just bought me a table saw, so that's what's up, and now I can continue to like make more shelving because there's tons of work to do,
Aw,
and I could take all of this with me when I move into like my own house. Everything is I've created it in such a way that I can kind of take it down and take it with me when I go. But yeah, so that's been my most random. I mean, it's not totally
Can we get a
random.
finger check?
Good.
Okay,
We're good.
got 10 of them. Congrats.
They're good. I did cut myself when I was trying to use a handsaw to cut a tiny piece of wood, so like a full-sized handsaw, and I was like, "I don't think this is how you're supposed to do this." Cut myself a little and then found a smaller saw, so that was fine. But other than that, it's been going pretty well. And then on top of everything else that I do, like be outside for a stupid amount of time. I'm usually outside constantly, and um, I'm into podcasts and I'm doing more reading. You know, all the things that I think a lot of people are doing these days. I'm also doing those, and woodworking apparently.
Woodworking. Woodworking.
what's the most interesting thing you've read lately?
That I've read. Um, that is a great question, actually, because I'm reading a lot of like self discovery books
Mm.
right now, so I'm really into those. And those are probably the most interesting thing that I read, just because even during times of not a pandemic, it's nice to just kind of go back to the basics and relearn things that maybe you forgot in times of high stress or whatever, and how relevant it is still now in during a pandemic, and that it was before the world kind of fell apart a little.
How about you, Sarah? What habits or hobbies have you picked up? Good or bad? I don't know. Um, so they're not the way the question was supposed to come out, but
I don't have any hobbies. I just obsessively read. So I mean, I've been reading like even more than normal. I have taken to sitting outside in the sun, which I have not done really since I was like a teenager because it's just been so ingrained in me that like the sun is bad, cover your body, no sun, wear your sun hat, wear your sunscreen, even in Wisconsin when it's 20 below zero, which I actually do, which is like, what? No, you're just ruining your vitamin D levels here. So I like legitimately have just been sitting outside in the sunshine and to the point where like I crave it. And I'm like, oh, there's sun is helpful. Mental
Yeah.
health. Thumbs up. Like this is working for me. So my hobby now is more reading and apparently sunbathing. I'm becoming a whole new person. Can't even tell. I look just as pale as ever. That's fine. Um, I don't know. I don't really have like hobby wise. I'm just trying to survive. That's my hobby right now. Survival, which is I think, sometimes takes like a lot more effort than we give ourselves credit for. Not just during pandemic times. Sometimes it's just like, oh my God, I'm gonna get up, get out of bed today, check that box. So that makes it sound like I'm in a really bad place. And I'm not. I just haven't been doing like a whole lot of different stuff. John, you've picked up a
Excellent.
couple of new things, like at least
Oh boy.
gaming wise. This falls under that category of your hobby of gaming, but
Yeah, it going into this, I was on a real big World of Warcraft bender again. And then something about those first 2 weeks, I kind of just, I was kind of like, boy, I could play this a lot more, but I'd rather try something else out. And so I started um, trying to play Madden football. That didn't work out. And then one thing I did do, at a certain point, we're watching during the pandemic, and I'm like yearning for some sports and some live stuff. And I saw that NASCAR was going online for a couple races, and they'd have some of these drivers participate in NASCAR events shown live, but it's all online. Um, and then I was like, "Ooh, there's a hobby I could sink a lot of money into." Um, turns out it wasn't that expensive, so I bought the wheel and the pedals and apologized to my wife and bought the game and apologized to everybody, and now I'm like a dirt track driver and enjoy that as just a way to kind of forget about everything during the evenings. And yeah, and then I started getting into painting the cars and stuff like that. So you do funny things like that just to burn the time. Um, we'll see. We'll see where that ends up. Maybe I'll become professional or something, uh, and leave this whole place and be a online esports sports car driver or something. It's gonna be
I could see
horrible.
that. I could 1,000% see that. So you have my vote.
Yeah. Are we kind of toward the end of this?
we've gone through all of our questions, haven't
We've
we?
gone through all our questions. Yeah.
Sweet.
Any other last questions? Thoughts?
I don't think so. No.
Nothing. Nothing.
Okay, I have
Nothing.
one. It's short.
Go for it. Yeah.
Don't turn it around on me because I don't have any kind of answer. What's
Okay.
giving what's giving you hope right now? Like let's
Hmm.
end it on some high vibes.
Yeah, I think it's the kids. I'll start. I think it's the kids that I come into contact with, which is not like 1,000 children or anything like that, but
Mm.
so don't worry. But just like, my besties' children and how full of life they are and how much they don't, I don't know, like the other day, my little homeboy was like, this thing kind of sucks. He's talking about the pandemic, and I'm sure he heard one of us say that. But I was like, "Yeah, it does." And then he just kind of sits there for a second and goes back to jumping on his trampoline and like having the time of his life. And it's just like, yeah, we can sit in that negative space, and we should for a little bit, just to reflect on how serious it is. But also, what else? What else can we do? What else can we be doing? What other fun things? I run down the street and he rides his bike and he's just laughing and I'm just running alongside him and it all feels normal, and those are still things that we can do to have a good time. And so yeah, all the kids give me hope right now because they're just having a blast.
Always a good answer.
It started for me when you saw them in the first weeks letting the penguins outside their cages and walk around the zoo, and you thought that was the cutest thing. And now that's just kind of normal. And it's just, that's the scary part about it. Um, but I got a little bit of energy from those types of things at the beginning. Um, I think I think what gives me hope is just people are trying to reinvent themselves in different ways. I'm looking at a lot of or many of my favorite podcasts coming back or going to a different format. People that have done podcasting professionally for 10, 15 years and vowing never to do video. They're now doing video
Yeah.
and going through this is kind of uncomfortable and weird and learning how to do it. Um, it's that sort of stuff that we're having to figure out how to learn online and parents online and teach online, and it is a lot of work. But kind of the getting back to the internet that I knew and grew up on in the late '90s, early 2000s, where you have things like blogs and people are inventing things and so on and so on and so on. So that gives me hope. Um, similar thing, and it almost gets political. But on Father's Day, when I woke up and realized that my daughter and son were part of the whole "let's register for Trump tickets" on TikTok and not tell the
Yeah.
olds, and then all of a sudden it turns out, they thought they were going to have 1 million people there, and they had 6,000, and it's like, what happened? And you know, my kids were right there. They're like, "Yeah, we saw this on TikTok the whole way through." And we had it all planned out. I'm like, that is awesome. You got to be kidding. Kids are learning how to um, organize online and how to develop those communities online, for better or worse. I don't know where this whole TikTok thing will end up um, in a year or two or five, but they're figuring out how to get information, how to watch information, because we're in the middle of a big political thing right now too, and just getting kind of used to current events in a very, very, very deep way. So it gives me hope.
I said I wasn't going
I
to answer, but now
Now you came up with one.
I totally am. Yeah. I think I'm gonna go in the opposite direction of what you just said. Like, I totally agree that the internet is kind of like going through a groundedness, or like a back to like the good roots of
mhm.
this big thought experiment. Um, Definitely agree with that. I'm also seeing like a parallel movement of just life moving offline.
Yeah.
I know way more people in the past 2 or 3 weeks who are like, I'm just done. I'm quitting
Mhm.
social media fully. Like, I'm leaving the internet. I'm going to check my email like once a week. I'm just not, or like, I'm going to do my email for work and not have email anymore. Or even people who are like ditching their smartphones and going back to flip phones because they just don't. I mean, like, I know people who are doing this, which is really refreshing. I also think that, the world can't burn forever. Like, it burns. This is part of history. This is not a new thing. Pandemics are not a new thing. Like, in our lifetime, yes, this is unprecedented, but it's not at all unprecedented in like the world. Um, and what happens after things fall apart? They don't stay apart. Something new comes of it. And so for me, like, I think that's really hopeful. Like, of course I have to sit in the like tremendous discomfort and uncertainty of being right here, but I also think, okay, we're going to move past this eventually. Like, we're going to have built something new from this. And I just read the most remarkable book. It's called How We Show Up, and the author is Mia Birdsong, and it's basically about how we have the opportunity. And she wrote this pre-pandemic, but it's like every single word applies right now. We have the opportunity to do this differently. Like, we have the opportunity to show up for each other differently. That our community can look different. Our families, who we consider family, like not just our families of origin, but like our chosen families. How I think we've existed in this world, especially in American culture, where like you're not my business. Like, I just leave you. You're just like, I just leave you alone, because I'm like this independent, like we so value like self-reliance and independence to the point that we've pathologized it. Like we've made it like a pathological thing to just do everything on our own. And like, I'm going to raise my hand here and say that I'm part of a real family with two working parents. Like, and I mean real family as in like we have some garbage, like everybody has their stuff and it's hard, and we're two working
Right.
parents. We have two little kids, and we cannot do this alone, like in regular times. And basically what this book is saying is like, we are each other's business. And I think that we're going through something right now where we're realizing like, wait, all of the stuff that we've built around like this toxic culture is not actually working for people. And it may have taken us like a couple hundred years, and we've done some really ugly, horrible stuff along the way. But like I see a backing off of the internet and and going more towards each other. And I just think that's like, I think that's really hopeful. Even as I say, like, and then a lot of our work happens online, and a lot of our lives happen online, WisNet wise. I just think like, you want to talk about like connecting people. I think the connections there are getting more authentic and are getting stronger, and that's, at the end of the day, that gives me a lot of hope.
Fun.
Agreed.
Do you want to wrap us up, Sarah?
I don't remember. Do we have a wrapping up?
We'll figure this out after
We'll
episode
figure it out.
45.
We'll get it. Okay. So first of all, Felicia, thank you. I know this was not your favorite thing to do. So you're always willing to be
Felicia's
our,
been scared of this all week.
you're always willing to be our guinea
Like 2
pig.
weeks. Yeah.
So I just want to like recognize that like, appreciate your sharing and your thoughtfulness, and your willingness to show up even when you don't want to. For those of you out there listening, like the 3 people who are ever going to view this,
Our 2 fans.
right? If you want to be part of future WisNet community conversations, the show, you can participate live on these calls. The show, this
Calls,
video,
the
I don't even
show,
know what
the
it is.
podcast, the
You
video,
can be
the
here with
blog.
us in real time, by registering on our website at wisnet.net/events. You can also catch up later and look at the archives, because we're going to post all of the recordings and videos of these at the same spot. And if you have any questions or topic ideas or suggestions for guests, you can send us a message at the same spot, wisnet.net/events. Yeah, you don't want me and John like coming up with the content of this show all on our own forever. So please send us what you got.
Never.
We do really want this to be a community thing and have some fun with it. So get in touch.
Excellent. Thank you both.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.